Welcome to another exciting episode of the $1 Million Peddlers. I'm Papergoy.
And I'm Mr. Magazine.
And this is going to be the Mr. Magazine Hour. Subscriber wrote a question, and it's all for you, Mr. Magazine.
Cool.
They started buying collections recently from collectors. They found it a little awkward on how to handle the situation because the people are sentimentally attached to the stuff. But it's such a better way of buying the stuff that you actually want versus going hunting for it in the garage sales or thrift. How do you work out what you're going to pay for the stuff? Do you do a per piece, or do you break things out, separate things? How do you go about figuring out what a good price to pay is on a large collection?
Very good question. And I just had an experience a week ago with a gentleman came into the store and said, I'm moving out of state. I got models, I got comic books, I have die-cast cards, boxes and boxes. And usually I prefer them coming in. It's always easier because you have a little more of an advantage if they can come to my shop at your house. But more often than not, if it's large, they want you to come out there and look at it. Or it's too big to send pictures on the phone, because that's another out. I'll say, hey, send me the pictures. I'll do some research, and they feel comfortable with me researching, and not just some fast guy coming over. Okay, $500. They want to make sure you put time into their collection. It means a lot to them. And if someone just looks at it real quick and goes, I'll give you $500, they tend to think like you're scamming them or you're lowballing them. You're not putting much time and effort into their prized possession. So what I generally do is I'll tell them, I'll make an appointment, get there. I'll say I'm going to take a bunch of pictures with my phone. Then I'm going to go back to my shop.
Okay, so you make it a two-part thing, if possible.
Yeah, because it takes a long time. Even the one last week, it actually took me like 2 hours just to go through it all, because there were these gigantic Home Depot boxes, and they had, say, 20, 30 models in them. Well, he wanted to make sure I saw them all, so he took them all out. I took pictures of everything, just so I can give him a better price, accurate price on everything, so I could research it. And it took 2 hours. I said, I'm going to go home. I'm going to research it all. It was a Friday. I said, I'll call you. He's out of state this week anyways. I said, I'll send you an offer next week breaking it down. And then they also like a breakdown too. So he had models, die-cast, and comics. The comics were separately. I came up with a price for the comics because I think he thought they were worth way more than they were. And the models, which he didn't think were as good, were way better. And I told him, the models are the best things you have, just so you know. Die-casts are pretty slow. Comics are kind of common stuff. And, and when you break it down like that, they trust you. And they tend not to even look elsewhere, because and I was telling them stories about, I went to Washington, we went to Canada, we go all over the country, and that makes them think that I'm very honest, because people trust me to go all over the country. I have all these successful deals, not just on Stone Road, but all over the country. So between that and the pictures and the researching and the separating the types of items, I think that gives them a lot of comfort with your offer. And you can't change their mind. It's that's stuff that they don't want to part with. That's always going to happen. You just have to do the best you can and tell them, hey, we're going to find a happy home for them, these toys or whatever. They're going to live on in someone else's collection, that's all.
Well, and I guess another thing over there is, if you can't reach a deal today, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't reach a deal tomorrow.
Right.
Because, and I think this is fairly important, and I know we've talked about this before, you have to figure out why they're selling as well. In other words, does the guy really want to sell, or is he just kind of putting feelers out there because he knows he's getting older and he knows at some point he has to sell because one of his friends' wives got stuck with a big collection and didn't know what to do with it. So he doesn't want that to happen.
Right.
But in his head, I don't really have to sell right now. So if you came in and, in his head, the collection's worth $50,000 and you come in and offer him $70,000 for it, well, of course he's going to sell.
Right, yeah.
But if you offer him the $20,000 or $15,000, which you can offer and still make money on it, he's not in a position where he really needs to sell.
Right.
But he's at least can tell himself, well, I've started down that path.
Sure.
And at that point, I think you leave your card with them and you let them know that, hey, if you ever really are interested, or if you want to just sell parts of it, by all means, reach out to me as well.
Sure.
Because maybe he had a cancer scare. Maybe he had this. Maybe he had this. And he's just worried, and he wants to make sure that there's always a way out. And for all you know, when you leave, he tells his wife, yeah, that was a fair offer. $20,000 was a fair offer on that. I just didn't want to sell right now. But if something happens to me, give the guy a call. And if he's still going to give you that price, definitely take it.
Oh, yeah.
You absolutely never know, too. And that's one of the advantages that we have is we have the ability to play the long game on it because A, we don't need to buy anything.
Right.
We have enough stuff at this moment here that we don't have to buy anything.
Sure.
And B, we will be around in 5 years, 10 years,
Yep.
15 years when
Right.
they call to try to sell it, when they legitimately want to sell it.
Sure.
So again, sometimes people will give you a call, they just got the feelers out, but for whatever reason, they're really not, they're not pressured to sell, and I don't mean pressured in a bad way. They're just,
Right.
they just don't care one way or the other. I mean, I guess it would be like one of those deals if I took you up to my collection room and I said, make me an offer. And if you made an offer that blew me away, well, guess what?
Right.
You're walking out with it.
Yeah.
But you're not going to do that.
Yeah, more often than not, they have a price in mind. They don't want to tell you the price because for some reason they think you're going to offer way more than their high price because they're going to put a high price on it. And usually at this stage, I try not to make any offers and say, hey, if you're going to shop it around, come see me last. Then I don't need this stuff. I don't need to make you an offer. If it's something really rare and hot, and I think I'm going to make a high offer that no one's on the top, I may throw it out there, or say, hey, if someone's actually a little higher, come back. Maybe I can have a little more wiggle room, something like that. But yeah, just I don't like to play that game where they're shopping the stuff around. Like the guy I dealt with last week, he said some guy owed him a lot of money. He didn't say how much, but say the guy owed him 10 grand. Well, he's thinking the stuff 20 years ago was 10 grand. Now it's worth 10, 15, 20,000. When in fact it's worth, say it's worth 7 or 8,000. I'm going to offer half of that. You don't know, and he may not sell. Even though he's moving out of town, he may not want to sell because like, geez, I'm taking a bath. This guy owed me 10. I'm getting 3 or 4 or whatever. So it gets tricky sometimes.
But the other side of that too is he might say that right now, and then when the moving trucks start pulling up, right. And then he's like, I don't really want to bring this stuff to Nevada.
Right. Well, another thing I look at it too, there's not many people in Rochester that can tackle 300, 400, 500 pieces of that magnitude. It would take up a huge truck, take a lot of time to list. So that's another thing. So you got to find someone that makes a higher offer than me, and have the employees that could list it in a timely manner and store it as well. Right.
And I think we've talked about that as well. If you let me get that deal, I'm out of commission for quite a while. Well, I might not be because I've got mental problems, but other people are out of commission. Other people are out of condition for a while, or out of commission because now that's what they're listing.
Sure.
They put $10,000 into that collection, and they're relying on the business to pay their bills.
Right.
They've got $10,000 they have to get back out.
Sure.
And again, I've got the day job, and I'm crazy, so I could just find somewhere or other to pile it and keep buying stuff. But there aren't a lot of people dumb enough to do that. Hopefully that answered the question. By all means, if you do have any questions, anything you need a little bit of help on, reach out to us, comment to us. We definitely are more than willing to help you out and give our opinions on it. And all we ask in return is
hit that like button.
And we'll see you next video.
Take care. Bye-bye.